Sorry, my microphone's cord was caught underneath my monitor. Hi, Melissa. Okay, so you've chosen an Edward Steichen work, which is a really, really beautiful photograph. And I read over your ideas about how you think the lighting was created here. And I think some of your ideas are correct. However, I might just be misinterpreting your language. But I'll just go over what I think. I want you to know I think your write-up's great. But I'm just going to go over what I think, and then you can decide if we agree, because I had a little bit of difficulty comprehending. It could just be me, though. It's rather early this side of the country. So what I think is we have two separate lights here. We have one light, which you're correct, I believe is it's diffused somehow above her. It's, I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see my cursor here, but it's above her. And I know this because I can see highlights on the top of her head. And then this is actually her head that's casting this shadow here. And then the light falls off on her back. Her back is not illuminated very much here. So the light is hitting the top of her head directly. So it's above her and maybe slightly behind her. There may be a reflector out near the camera just to bounce light back into her. I'm assuming there is, just because I'm seeing a slight shadow right here that's being cast by her clothing here. Can you see that little shadow there? And so there's probably like passive fill or bounce or something coming from over here, but it's definitely not the key light. The key light is above her and slightly behind her. And then lastly, there's a light either being forced through a paper backdrop here to create this beautiful rim light, or it's a light that's coming from somewhere else, perhaps through a snoot, or maybe with Borndar, as Vicky said, that's being focused as a spot on the background right behind her. And so I think it's a very simple setup with two lights, one on her directly coming from above and slightly behind, a separate one for the background, and then possibly passive fill, because that would explain why there's a shadow right here. That shadow might be cast by light reflecting off of this rock or whatever it is that she's sitting on, but it seems a little bit too bright for that. I suspect that it's passive fill. So that's what I think happened here. I think it could be easily done with two lights, a paper backdrop, and a passive fill, which would just be a large reflector. And I think that's more or less what you described. There's probably a few other ways you could effectively get the same situation, but that would be my first attempt at this. So anyways, great write-up. Minus two things. One, you didn't include your citations. Now, I know I didn't say here, like I didn't say, oh, you've got to include your citations for full credit, but it's the 5th week, so we know that. And it's in the announcements that all of the discussion questions require citations unless you're specifically told that they don't. I usually just do everybody the courtesy of reminding you, but I just didn't this time. And then also, whenever you pull somebody else's image from the web, you need to cite it. You have to cite that. You have to give the other photographer credit. And I know that you are talking about how this is not your image, and that, you know, so you're talking about that image in your write-up as it's not yours. However, you actually have to follow MLA guidelines and form and cite the photo as well. So you would tell us, you know, who took the photo circa, and then where you actually pulled it from, like a website or whatever. And then the date that you pulled it from that particular website would be adequate in this case. Okay, but really good thoughts on how you would have attempted to light something similar to this, and I think you would have experienced a bit of success with your ideas there in the studio. Okay, thank you so much.